Hello. Hi. I am not, unless I'm having problems with my audio, I can't hear you. Hold on for a second. Oh. So we're doing Zoom tonight. The Discord thing. Oh, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is gonna come. You know, Freckles said she's having some at work or something. But a couple more we're planning on showing up. So I know that Zoom has like a 40-minute window.
Uh-huh.
So after the 40 minutes, I'll probably have to send another link.
Okay.
And hop back on.
Okay. I may end up turning my audio off for 1 second only because I have a football game on right now. I'm watching my Steelers play. So. Although I haven't been too involved with the Discord groups lately, just because I've been so busy at work. I'm a school psychologist in a district, and I'm taking my test for the 8th time.
Oh my gosh, that's so stressful.
It's in 2.5 weeks, so it's like, okay. What I did is I just went through again and just bought a whole bunch of mocks, and I've spent so much money on trying to pass this test. It's insane.
And you've tried the free mocks from the Study ABA group?
Oh yeah. I've done the free. I did the free mocks before the last time I took the test. My highest score that I've gotten so far is a 393. So
I mean, you're not terribly far off.
I know.
We're almost there. Almost there.
I know. So I'm just hoping that, and this right now, what I'm doing is I'm doing BAS video modules right now, listening to those. And then I have all of their mini mocks and 2 regular mocks. And then I just picked up some more Study ABA mocks. So I am doing something every single day up until the time I have to take the test.
Have you done the SNABA?
I have. Yeah, I've done some. I've done a couple of their mocks, actually, is what I've done. And I have their app on my phone.
Yeah, I find that I remember most of the stuff through the Study Notes ABA best.
Yeah. Crap, I shouldn't even be watching this stupid game. At least she'll keep me from swearing. So, because my family, that's why I can't watch the game with my family, because I tend to swear. So I'm a big football fan. So, and I live in Ohio, but we're originally from Pennsylvania. So the people out here like the Cleveland Browns. I'm like, I'm not.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So experimental design was definitely something that I thought this would be great for me to be a part of. So.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more difficult topics for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just it's a lot of information, and it's really just meticulous. And there's so many words and terms that are synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's such an issue. But I think that I'll go ahead and start pulling up our PowerPoint and see who files in a little bit after. So let me see.
Okay.
I want to share. And then let me know if you can see our PowerPoint.
Okay. Oh yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Hi, Carol. All right, so I was telling Melissa that I'm pretty sure Zoom has a 40-minute time session, then it'll cut out. If it does that and we want to keep going, I can just start another one, or we can resume with the next 40 minutes of the PowerPoint next week or in a couple days, or however we end up wanting to do it.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. Experimental design. Super tricky topic, super meticulous. Super annoying. What is experimental control? So experimental control is what you're trying to prove in any design that you have. That's basically just saying that we can control the behavior with the intervention that we're implementing. The goal, obviously, is always to show that we have a really strong experimental control and functional relationship from the behavior to the intervention. So technical terms, when a predictable change in behavior, which is going to be DV on your exams, can be reliably changed by manipulating the independent variable. The independent is always intervention. And then the higher the experimental control, the higher the functional relation. Some terminology that we're going to need to know going into this. Steady state strategy. Have you guys heard of this before? I don't know how much vocab we have.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that.
Okay, so repeated exposure of subject to a condition while trying to eliminate extraneous influences on a behavior and obtaining a stable pattern of responding before introducing the next condition. Basically, before you implement another condition, another phase change, anything, you want to make sure that the data that you have is steady. Your baseline, you're going to want a steady baseline before you start a design, because if the baseline isn't steady, we can't really say that the intervention was effective, because the intervention, it could be high or low, but it's going to be variable in the baseline. Baseline logic refers to the experimental reasoning inherent in subject experiment designs. Its elements depend on steady state strategy and overall experimental approach. So your baseline logic, you're gonna look at the logic. How are we gonna, what interventions, is it steady? Where are we going from here? Non-parametric analysis, that means there's two kinds of analysis. You have non-parametric and parametric. Non-parametric, you're going to remember hashtag on off. The intervention is either in there or it's not. Then parametric analysis, you're going to remember hashtag dosage. How much intervention, how much design is necessary to produce a change in behavior. Say somebody, you have a child who won't work. Okay, he's not going to work for 1 cookie. That's not reinforcing enough for him. 2 cookies, not quite reinforcing enough. Maybe he'll work for 3 cookies. It's the dosage, how much intervention we're going to need to change that behavior. And then affirmation of the consequent, it's a 3-step system, and it's basically reasoning your graphs. Begins with the true antecedent consequent. If A happens, then B, kind of like a prediction. If we put the intervention in there, we're going to see the behavior decrease. Then it's going to be followed by a statement and proceeds to follow as 1. If A is true, then B is true, our prediction. We said if we were putting the intervention in there, the behavior was going to decrease. We put the intervention in there, the behavior decreased. B is found to be true, therefore A is true. It's kind of like the transient property in math. If A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. You just reason it all out. Some more words to know. I'm going to move this all around. 3 elements of your baseline logic: prediction, verification, and replication. I'm sure you guys have heard those terms before, but prediction, an anticipated outcome. If we put the intervention in, we're going to see a decrease in behavior. Verification, that's when we're putting the intervention in and we're seeing the behavior change, and we can do that over and over. Then replication is how believable is it? Shows reliability of the exchange, can make it happen again. Replication accomplished by reintroducing the intervention. So it's just like, think of an ABAB design. How many phase changes are we going to use? How many times are we going to replicate the same behavior change? And of course, the more times you replicate it, the stronger it is. Affirmation of the consequent. Inductive logic. If the intervention wasn't applied, the behavior wouldn't change. Experimenter predicts that the intervention will change the behavior. If the intervention controls the behavior, then the data path in the presence of the intervention shows that change. You see the data path for the behavior either increasing or decreasing depending on how it's reacting to the intervention. And when the behavior changes in the presence of the intervention, this proves that the intervention is controlling the behavior. So it affirms the prediction that the behavior would not change without the intervention. Does that make sense to everyone? That one's a little tricky. Okay. Some more words to know: internal validity, extent to which experiment shows that changes in the behavior are a function of the intervention and not controlled by other variables. Only one intervention at a time. Best way to see its effect on the behavior, one intervention. High internal validity equals strong experimental control. There are 4 confounding threats to internal validity. You can memorize it as measurement confounds, reactivity, observer drift, observer bias. All that's going to be in your measurement. And then you're going to have intervention confounds, subject confounds, setting confounds. I don't know if this is something you guys have gone over before or if we need to go over them. No, we don't, or no, we haven't.
No.
We're good. At least I'm good with that. I don't know
Okay.
about the other ones.
Melissa, Fallon, Jessica, you guys know these
Yeah,
4?
I'm aware of the maturation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And those are just boring ones. There's no easy way to remember them. You just have to memorize it. Words to know: external validity, treatment integrity, trend, stability, level, variability. We all know those. I think those are pretty basic terms. Okay.
I'm good.
And what is an experiment? A well-planned experiment begins with a specific question for nature. You're always going to have at least one behavior, one subject, one setting, one treatment, whatever measuring system you're going to use, and you're going to pick your experimental design. An easy way to remember all of the experimental designs is WAR-MC. I learned it from Study Notes ABA. It's stuck in my head ever since. Women attack real man candy. And it's alternating, reversal withdrawal, multiple baseline, and changing criterion. And I'm telling you, SNUBA, the hashtags and the acronyms, they make you remember. So single subject designs, they're nice because the subject acts as its own control. So you kind of compare it to itself. It has much less to do. Alternating design. Your functional assessments, your FBAs, also known as multi-element, used to conduct FAs. Multi-element, multi-schedule works to bring the same behavior under control of multiple stimuluses. You're going to remember hashtag discriminative stimulus. Rapidly changing design, a lot of back and forth. Experimental control is demonstrated when the data path is consistently higher than the others. So you're going to do this a lot with your functional assessments, where you're going to test each, function of a behavior. And what you're going to want to see is, ideally, one function is going to fall higher consistently than all of the others. And that's how you're going to predict that this is what the function of this behavior is. Sometimes you're going to see that none of them fall higher than the other, and they're all kind of the same. So that could demonstrate that it's an automatic behavior. If nothing particularly is, influencing it more than another one. Alternating treatment designs, the pros: minimize the sequence effect. You don't have a lot of the back and forth, so sequencing isn't really an issue. There's no withdrawal required, so we don't have any ethical issues there. Compares effectiveness quickly. It doesn't really take a long time because we don't have a ton of phases that we have to go through. Can be used with unstable data. So you don't have to have a stable baseline. You don't even really have to have a baseline. You just have to do it. Minimizes irreversibility. Interventions can begin immediately. Again, we don't really need a baseline. We're just going to test if this is it, and we're going to see what happens. We're going to test what the frequency of this behavior is, as opposed to everything else. You can use a baseline, but it's not technically necessary. Cons: it's a rapid back and forth of interventions. Can be considered artificial or undesirable, susceptible to multiple treatment interference, limited capacity. They suggest you only do 4. So here's your typical withdrawal reversal. There is a difference it's very minimal. So a withdrawal is going to be ABA, and a reversal is going to be ABAB. I see mostly now it's used kind of interchangeably, but if it gets down to super specifics, that's the only real difference between the two that I can think of. It's just ABA and then ABAB. You do require a baseline for your withdrawal and your reversals. You're going to remember hashtag internal validity, hashtag ABAB. Treatment is withdrawn or reversed. So we have to take it away and then we can put it back. More replications, more experimental control. It's going to be the more times you present the intervention and you get the same data and you can replicate it, the stronger your intervention is. And we're able to say that, you know, we have a correlation here, and we have experimental control. So we have functional control. Most powerful experimental design. So this is what you're going to want to do if you have a really tricky behavior and you really want to show that the intervention is working here. As long as it meets all the rest of the criteria, your ABAB. Used with behavior that is reversible. So you wouldn't use this with the behavior like teaching communication. That's a skill that we can't take away. We can't reverse that. You wouldn't teach this with something that's motor memory, like riding a bike or something. That's not something we can take away. Disadvantages, ethics, withdrawing an intervention. You wouldn't use this with an SIB because you wouldn't really want to withdraw an intervention that is proving helpful to something so severe. Sequencing effect. So what they learn in one baseline can possibly carry over. There's a sequencing effect. Irreversibility, not suitable for skills that cannot be unlearned. Reading academics, we mentioned that. Any questions on withdrawal reversals? 5 types of reversal designs. Resting bitch face makes no dates. Another SNABA. So repeated reversals, BAB reversal, multiple treatment reversal, NCR reversal, DRI, DRA, DRO reversal. Repeated reversal, more repetition, the stronger the functional control. BAB, this is the one that you would use for SIB. Treatment before baseline, used for severe behavior such as SIB and/or limited time, weaker than ABA, sequencing effect. Sequencing effect is a con, weaker than ABA is a con, and you have kind of an ethics issue that we don't really have a choice. There's a severe behavior, we don't have time to collect baseline data, we need to just jump in and try to treat it. The con is, ethically, can we now withdraw this behavior that is proving to decrease this severe SIB? We have to show that we have control over it, but to what extent? Multiple treatment compares 2 or more treatments to a baseline. That's going to be you'll see it in your graph. It'll be like ABC, ABCD, ABCDE. It can go on as many times, and you have sequencing effect as the con. NCR reversal, you don't really see a lot of NCR reversals or DRO, DRA, DRI that I have seen. NCR reversals shows effects of reinforcement by using non-contingent reinforcement as a control instead of returning to a baseline. Then your DRO, DRA reversals shows the effects of reinforcement by using the alternate reinforcement schedule as a control instead of returning to a baseline. Implementing the reinforcement instead of returning to baseline allows examination of contingent reinforcement. I haven't ever actually seen one of those, but I mean, they exist somewhere. Multiple baseline. So when you see the multiple baseline, it's always going to be kind of staggered. So you're going to remember hashtag staggered steps. It's the most widely used. It's the most flexible. It requires stability in baseline. Withdrawal is not required. So this is okay to use when it's unethical to remove an intervention because you're not really going to have to remove it. Staggered intervention, hashtag staggered steps. One treatment across behaviors, subjects, or settings. It's always going to be one treatment across any of the subjects that we're using. Weaker variations are your multiple probe and your delayed multiple baseline. Multiple baseline variations used when extended baseline measurement is unnecessary, impractical, too costly, not available. Your multiple probes, data probes are taken in baseline instead of continuous measurement. So we're not going to watch continuously. We're not going to take continuous measurement. It's going to be a lot of drop-in probes. And it's going to look like kind of a lot of information with holes in it, but you just kind of have to make sense of these drop-in probes. Intermittent measurement provides the basis for determining if behavior change has occurred prior to baseline. Then your delayed multiple baseline, effective when resources are limited, hindering the ability to conduct a full-scale design. When a new behavior, subject, or setting becomes available, you're in the middle of a design and now there's a new subject. Okay, well, let's throw them in. Now we have a delayed multiple baseline. Observation, the baseline won't have started at the same time, shorter baselines. And we're going to use this when reversal design isn't possible. Limited resources, again, we don't have the resources to do all this, so we're going to do the delayed baseline. And when the new subject setting becomes available, shorter baselines don't show interdependence of behaviors. Changing criterion. This is always the easiest one for me to remember, and the easiest one to identify in a graph for me. Hashtag stepwise fashion. It's going to be steps down or steps up, depending on which direction you're aiming for, which direction the behavior is going. The behavior must already be in the repertoire. That's the only real issue with changing criteria. The behavior has to already exist. It always looks at one behavior. It's just going to be one at a time. Does not have to reverse the behavior. You're not reversing it. It kind of reminds me of chaining. When you write a task analysis or you're chaining something, eventually you want to get the full chain done, but you have to take it one small step at a time. So that's kind of how this correlates in my head, chaining behaviors and changing criterion. Experimental control is demonstrated when the data points fall closely onto those criterion lines that you see, little dashes in the photo. The closer your data points can fall on those lines, the stronger the control is. Let's see. Initial baseline is followed by a series of changes, up or down, wherever you're going, which direction. Successive, gradually increasing or decreasing criteria. Does anybody have any questions on the changing criterion? No. I feel like this one is the easiest one to recognize when you see it. One thing to remember that they'll probably throw at you is the behavior has to already exist. I'm sure that that'll be there somewhere. If they put in there that, the behavior already exists, well, that's an option. If the behavior doesn't already exist, you can automatically eliminate it. That's one of the big differentiating factors. Things to consider. The length of your phases should be long enough for stable responding. If we're tracking, say we're tracking how many math problems a kid can do in 5 minutes, and we only have a phase for 15 minutes, well, then they only have the possibility of having 3 data points, and they're going to have to be right after the other. Magnitudes of criteria changes. You can, I think it's called ratio risk. The magnitudes, you're going to want to keep them like small goals. You want to make sure that it's achievable. You don't want somebody that, smokes 50 cigarettes a day and you want to get them down to 2. You're not going to start at 50 and then drop them down to 49 and then 48 and then you go to 25. That's going to be ratio strain. You're setting yourself up for failure. That's too much. It's not going to work. Then you're going to have to go back and start all over again at the last time they were able to achieve that goal. And you're going to have a whole nother wait until they get there. And then you're going to have to gradually small steps again. Magnitude of your changes. And then number of changes. The more changes, the more experimental control. So if you have a design and you want to get from 50 cigarettes to 1, and somehow you're able to do that in 3 phase changes, you're at, which seems impossible to me, but somehow you can make it work. You're at 50, then you go to 30, and then you go to 1. Technically, you got all the way to 1, but you're not showing a lot of control because there's not a lot of phase, and that doesn't seem reasonable. So I'm going to go question it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to start it over, and I'm probably going to see that that's not actually what happened. Let's try to name some designs. So this first one up here, does anybody know what this design is?
That's a BAB.
Yep, that's a BAB. So what do we know about BAB? When do we use a BAB?
For SIV.
Yep, for SIV, for any serious kind of behavior that we don't have time to really find a baseline on. We just have to get in there. We have to implement it right now. What is an ethical concern with a BAB design?
Withdrawal of an effective treatment.
Yes, withdrawal of effective treatment. If you have a child who is biting his hand so severely that he's taking chunks of his skin off, and we have an intervention that's keeping him from harming himself so devastatingly, how ethical is it to take that away now that we know, you know, it's working, it's going down, and he's not harming himself as much? How ethical? How can we justify taking that intervention away? So that's a big concern. Ethics with the BAB. Also, on the other hand, if you didn't do a BAB, ethically, we're not implementing treatment when we know it could possibly work. We're wasting time doing a baseline. So we're allowing them to self-harm. It's kind of a really back and forth. And what is this one right here? Can you see it? The bottom left?
I can't see what that is. AB. It just looks like a regular ABAB design.
So it's an ABAB design. Yep, that's right. What do we know about ABAB? What kind of design is that?
Is it a withdraw, a reversal? No, what's it called? What am I thinking?
You're right, a reversal.
Yeah.
Reversal withdrawal design. Yep. So what do we know about that design? Anything? What are some cons to an ABAB design, a reversal design?
It shows control.
That's a pro, not a con. It's a really strong design. It shows functional control. So sequencing effect, because we have a lot of phases,
Right.
they can carry over. So sequencing effect is a con there.
Irreversibility.
Irreversibility. Yep, we don't want to use an ABAB design for a behavior or a skill that we then have to unlearn. We're not going to use it for riding a bike. We're not going to use it for motor control. We're not going to use it for academics. We wouldn't want to teach our kids addition facts or multiplication facts and then say, okay, forget them. We're going to start over and do it again. That's silly. And then ethics again. How function is it to take this intervention away if we're showing that, it's working? And the bottom right.
Changing criterion.
Changing criterion. Yep, that's going to be the easy one. Do you think that this one shows a lot of functional control?
No.
No, it's not a lot of functional control. It's very variable. You don't have a lot of data points that are falling along those lines. It's very up and down. It does increase, so it is an ascending trend, but it doesn't show a lot of control. It just shows that we're getting there, but we can't really justify that the intervention has so much control over the behavior. What else do we know about a changing criterion design?
The behavior should already be on the learner's repertoire.
Absolutely. The behavior has to already exist and in the repertoire. We can't start a changing criterion design if they don't already know the basis
Mhm.
of the behavior. We can do that for, increasing math problems in a certain amount of time. We can
Mhm.
do that for how long somebody has to run. How long can somebody run before they're out of breath? Increase little by little. Eventually, they want to run a 5K. Eventually, we want to be able to do 100 multiplication facts in 1 minute. Those 100 multiplication fact sheets, we want to be able to do that. So a changing criterion design we would use for that. All right. What about the top left?
That is an alternating treatment design with a baseline.
Mhm.
It is. That's a little tricky because some people get thrown off when they see it with the baseline because it doesn't necessarily have to have one. But
Right.
it does occur that sometimes they do take baseline data on it. And so you have an alternating treatment design with a baseline.
Mhm.
What do we use? Where are you going to mostly see your alternating treatment designs?
FBA or
FBAs.
FAs.
Yep, your FAs and your FBAs. When you want to figure out the function of a behavior, you're going to
Mhm.
test all conditions. And hopefully, you're going to see one function, one condition, always higher, consistently higher than the others. And that's how you're going to determine what is that behavior is functioning from. What does it mean if you see multiple functions, kind of even with each other and nothing really outlying?
Sensory.
Yeah,
Automatic
it's going to
reinforcement.
Yep, it's usually going to be an automatic behavior. Either
Mhm.
nothing's really controlling that, or
Mhm.
it's an automatic, which is basically the same. If you don't have an outside condition to control it, it's going to be an automatic.
Mhm.
What about right under that in the bottom?
Oh, baseline. Oh, that's a ABS.
Reversal.
Mhm. Yeah.
Don't get no shoes. Heidi said
Yeah.
she'd like to
Do
go
we know what that is?
Yeah.
Which one?
It's someone said it, I thought reversal withdrawal design.
It's going to be a withdrawal because remember we
Withdrawal.
said the main
Yeah.
difference when you look at a graph to know which one it is, usually they're interchangeable. So if it
Mhm.
says that, it's one or the other. They're super,
Mhm.
super similar. The only real
Mhm.
difference I ever notice is with the withdrawal, we don't put the treatment back in. We just withdraw back to baseline.
Gotcha.
And then to the right of that,
Oh, that's a multiple baseline.
multiple baseline. Yep.
Mhm.
In a multiple baseline, can you change subjects through phases?
Yes.
Yes. You track one behavior, but it can be multiple subjects, multiple locations, multiple subjects, locations, interventions, but we're tracking one behavior. Then above that,
Mhm.
Reversal.
Mhm.
yep, that's going to be your reversal design.
Mhm.
And let's see, this right here, what is this one going to be? The top left.
That is.
That's a reversal.
Mhm.
Because
Which one are we looking at again? Sorry.
The one where your mouse is, right?
This one right here. Yep.
Arrow. Mhm.
it's a reversal because there's more than one treatment
Mhm.
and
More than
it's
one baseline.
line.
Yep. It's a multiple treatment reversal
Mhm.
design.
Mhm.
And then right here next to it,
That's a
Alternating, right?
yep, that's our
Mhm.
alternating treatment. And is that big enough for you guys to read? I can't tell. No. Okay. So just on the shapes, which one is the functional control?
Escape. Right? No.
It's going to
That's
be
the
this one
one.
right here
Yeah.
at the
That's
top.
escape. Mhm.
Yep. And that one is escape. And then down here, this one,
multiple baseline design.
multiple baseline.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this one, I forgot to crop out the title for it, so we know it's a changing criterion. I wanted to put this one because it shows you that the baseline is not stable. We don't have
Yeah.
to have a stable baseline in to implement a design. And then do you think that it has a lot of functional control?
No.
I would say that it has some functional control, but it's definitely variable. There's a few iffy spots in there. But we can see that it has a descending trend, and it's all pretty close to,
Right.
our prediction path. It's not
Right.
falling directly on it. Of course, if it was falling directly on the path, we could say there's a lot of functional control here. But it's pretty close. It's not super variable throughout the whole graph.
Right.
And then what about this? Can we identify the 3 phases of baseline logic? Do we know baseline logic, prediction, verification, replication?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what is this going to show?
That's prediction.
Yeah, that's our prediction. That's basically saying if we didn't implement treatment, this is what our behavior would look like. These are what our data points would look like. Then what about this? One up
Verification.
here. Yeah, this is our verification. So we're verifying that what we think is correct. If we implement our treatment, we're going to go up. And we're not staying here where our prediction shows us at the bottom. And then this one,
That's
Replication.
replication.
Yep. So we have prediction, where we think that it would be if we didn't implement an intervention. And then we put our treatment in. We're verifying because we have our behavior up here, our intervention up here, our baselines, and then we're replicating it with our treatment. So yeah, I was just showing you prediction, verification, replication. And that is all the graphs that I have. So do we have any questions on the designs?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think so.
No?
I'm good.
Okay, so can you name all the designs?
Sure.
WAR MC.
Yep, RMC.
Alternating, reversal, multiple
Multiple.
treatment, and changing criteria.
Perfect. So I find that it's helpful when I take a test to just write all my acronyms down at the top, and then I can reference them when I need them, because one of the main issues with the exam is fluency. It's a timed exam. So if you have to spend a lot of time thinking and second guessing, you're going to run out of time to finish all the questions. So you want to purge as much information as you can onto the paper to make sure that you can reference it as quickly as you can. I've had a lot of feedback on that it's not necessarily they don't know, it's that it takes a lot of time to recall. So you really want to be okay with your fluency, and those acronyms really help with fluency.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Don't know if this recorded. If it did record, then I'll
Yeah, I think it
we
did.
can reference later. If it didn't record, then I hope we all understand it well.
I see a little record up in my corner, so I'm assuming
Okay.
it's recording.
Oh, great. Hopefully it recorded for everyone. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
I
really
think that I'm
appreciate it.
going to do these Zoom things a little bit more because the Discord is just kind of iffy. And if it records, it'll be helpful for everybody because we can reference it later. So if you have any suggestions on what you would like to see or what everybody's a little questiony on, a little iffy on, you can just leave them in our general discussion chat, and Bree and I can figure out what we want to really present next week.
Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Corian. Thank you for
Discord.
trying to make the slides and discuss
Thank-
it with us.
Thank
Awesome. I'll see you guys later.
I'll see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.